Hey everybody, I'm Nate McGackey, Executive Director of Arts North Carolina, and I want to welcome you all to this webinar about getting to know Arts North Carolina and local advocacy. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white middle-aged man, bald, wearing glasses, blue dress shirt, a black jacket, in front of a backdrop with the Arts NC logo and mission statement, uniting people and communities to strengthen and celebrate a creative North Carolina. First, I want to thank all of the amazing members, or individuals and organizations, as well as sponsors that support the work of Arts North Carolina every day of the year. Today, I am speaking to you from the unceded lands of the Tuscarora people, now known as Apex, North Carolina. We honor and celebrate all of the indigenous communities, past and present, across this state and this nation. We also honor and acknowledge the generations of displaced and enslaved people that built and continue to build the country we currently occupy. We invite you all to join us in responsibility and thoughtful action in support of reconciliation, anti-racism, equity, accessibility, diversity, and inclusion. AI-generated closed captions are available for this session. To activate the closed captions, click the CC icon at the bottom of the video. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available with captions edited for accuracy on our website in our webinar archive. All right, so thus ends the official introduction to Nate McGackey, and I am really glad to see so many new faces, as well as so many folks that I have seen before. I was having a conversation with Janelle Winky at the North Carolina Arts Council, and we were going over all of the Arts Council leaders and realized that like 1 in 4 Arts Council leaders in this state is new to their position within the last year. So and we were like, well, we need to start just reaching out and connecting to so many new faces and just talk about who Arts North Carolina is and what we do. And specifically, I want to talk a little bit today about advocacy. Or local advocacy. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get rolling. And so first things first, for those of you that do not know me well, yes, that name is mine. It is Nate, pronounced Nate McGackey. I do not have a good reason for it, but if Brett Favre can get away with it, then so can I. I am also crazy enough to give you my cell phone number, which is right there, and my email, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. And if I don't know the answer, I'm usually pretty good at tracking down somebody that does. So I'm going to start off today talking about Arts North Carolina and who we are, a little bit about our history and our goals strategically. Also talking about our partners, both nationally and at the state level, and what we do and how we do that. And then we'll get into the second section, which is going to be much more about local advocacy and different methodologies for how that can happen. I am told that listening to me speak can be a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. So I promise that when it comes to information, you will not leave thirsty, though you may get a little wet. So, but feel free to put questions in the chat, and Christine will throw them out there. If she doesn't know that I'm going to get to it later. We're going to have time for questions at the end, and I want to try and move through the material relatively quickly because we've got so many great folks on this call. Hopefully we'll have time for questions, and that might get us into some discussion. So without any further ado, first, I want to get to know a little bit about who you are and who's on the call. So the question is, what term best describes you? You may identify as one of those things: artist, arts council administrator, arts organization executive, arts lover, arts advocate. But just, either use your phone and grab the QR code, or just go to www.minty.com. Throw in that code 41193908. And just kind of answer what hopefully will be this question if I have done it correctly. And I'll give everybody just a few minutes to do that. Maybe not a few minutes. All right, I might stop the share so I can and get, let's see if I can go. Oh, so I'm going to come over here, see if we are getting some results. All right. Are you guys seeing that screen share there? I can't see you, so it says stop share, so you must be seeing that. Looks like we have got a lot of Arts Council administrators in the room, one person identifying as an artist, one is an arts lover, and 7 leaders of or administrators of organizations. So super excited about that, because that is exactly the group we were hoping for. Up to 13 Arts Council administrators. That might be an unlucky number, but fantastic. Well, great. So, and the thing that we know from experience, and I didn't want to add a ton of these Menti questions, is that many of you are new to the position, which means that many of you are new to Arts North Carolina, and might not really know who we are and what we do. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and maybe dive in. Let's see. Oh, go ahead and head on to the next slide. First thing, we're a nonprofit organization, so let's talk about our mission and vision. We have a mission of uniting people and communities to strengthen and celebrate a creative North Carolina, and a vision of a vibrant North Carolina where the arts are embraced by all is indispensable. You could read that over and over again and still not really know exactly what we do, but primarily we work to advance public funding and policy for nonprofit or arts organizations, as well as the larger creative economy, but really founded on nonprofits, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, as well as advancing public funding and policy for comprehensive arts education. And we're going to talk more about that as well. Very briefly, to give you a brief history of Arts North Carolina. Also, I will say we will make the slides available on the website, so don't feel like you've got to take notes or remember every single thing. In 1974, an organization called the North Carolina Association of Arts Councils was founded. That was also when Nate McGachy was founded, so we kind of share a birthday. And so, and that was, you know, just a coalition of all of the many arts councils across the state. So that was really within our foundation. Then a completely separate 501c4 organization started called Arts Advocates of North Carolina. And they began their work based mostly out of Raleigh in 1983. That North Carolina Association of Arts Councils hired its first executive director in 1987. In 1993, they sort of expanded their mission to include the entire nonprofit arts industry, and renamed to Arts North Carolina. So 1993 was sort of when we officially rolled out as Arts North Carolina. Then in 1997, the two organizations merged. So Arts Advocates of North Carolina merged with Arts North Carolina, and Arts North Carolina took on advocacy as more of what we do. And then in 2000, because of a lot of things that were going on, Arts North Carolina's shift really became more about advocacy and less about being a professional association. So that was when the shift to where we are now really began. In 2008, the board adopted arts education as a key part of our advocacy mission, in addition to nonprofit arts. And then 2012, we had hired our first professional lobbyist, which, you know, was sort of a big shift in how we operated. Now, the goals of the organization, we really have 4 main strategic goals. This has recently been reapproved by the board and edited. Leadership, we work collaboratively and inclusively all across the state to identify and champion the most critical arts issues for North Carolina, whether that be nonprofit arts, creative economy, arts education. We're trying to figure out what those issues are and how we can best serve that. Advocacy, we develop strong and influential relationships with the advocates, with the communities across the state, community leaders, and elected officials, so that we can promote understanding of the valuable contribution of the arts and how the arts make a vibrant North Carolina. We're also committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Arts North Carolina works to amplify voices that have not been part of the conversation while prioritizing leadership, engagement, and inclusion in the arts, of historically and systemically overlooked, marginalized, or excluded communities. And lastly, organizational strengths. Arts and C focuses on its long-term sustainability by investing organizationally for our relevancy. And that's really something that, that I'll talk a little bit more about when I talk about, well, where our money comes from. So like I said before, we do function mostly as a 501c3 organization. We do have a dormant C4. A lot of advocacy organizations in other states might have both a 501c3 and a 501c4, or they're just a 501c4. 501c4s can behave a little differently in the political space, but we feel really comfortable working the way we do with our 501c3 status primarily. We are North Carolina's only statewide arts advocacy organization. We're multidisciplinary across lots of different art forms, and so we are the organization for the state. I'm a firm believer, if you want to understand an organization, you should understand how it is funded. 42% of our budget, it comes from organization memberships, which is almost entirely nonprofit arts and culture organization, while about 14% of our funding comes from individual donors, many of those associated with nonprofit arts organizations. About 5% comes from grants, which is actually still relatively new, that we're funding ourselves in a small part with grant. 15% comes from license plate, the creative state license plate. I'll have an image of one later on in the presentation. I encourage you all to check out thecreativestate.org, where you can find information on that. It costs $30 to get one, and then you just pay $30 with your vehicle registration every year moving forward, so you don't have to think about it. Of that $30, $20 comes to Arts North Carolina, and we use that to make sure that we have a professional lobbyist function at the General Assembly all year. The other $10 goes to the state. They use it for the nefarious purpose of putting wildflowers on the side of the road and other highway beautification initiatives. So it's a win-win for everybody. And then 23% of our revenue comes from sponsors and Arts Day revenue. And actually, when you look at it, about 2/3 of our revenue, when you look at between sponsorships and organization memberships, is coming from nonprofit organizations directly. So that's really a huge base of our support, is those arts organizations and arts councils across the state. So I want to just talk about a few terms, just so that we're all speaking the same language. Advocacy is support for a cause or an idea. It could be a policy, a position, a person. And advocacy is just really communication in support of that cause or idea. So as you're communicating advocacy, it might be something like arts education is good for student outcomes. Arts education helps students with social emotional learning. Arts education reduces dropout rates. So that's advocacy. Now, lobbying is a little different. It is defined as action to influence policy position or a person, etc. So it's really about a specific request or action. So while advocacy is arts education is good for students, lobbying might be we need to spend $10 million more on arts education in our county. So obviously, advocacy and lobbying, you can't have one without the other. They work very closely together. Now, a question I get a lot is about activism and what that means. Activism is vigorous campaigning for a policy position or person. So it can be advocacy, it can be lobbying. It does often make others uncomfortable, and oftentimes that is the point. I typically do not use the term activist because it has a tendency to maybe turn off some of the folks that I'm talking to. I had a former board member that actually identified himself as an arts evangelist. So, but activism is really just extreme advocacy or vigorous advocacy, and that sometimes will make others uncomfortable. So just being knowledgeable. So we talk mostly about advocacy and lobbying. So how do they work together? Well, grassroots advocacy, connecting folks to their elected officials. So that is a huge piece of what we do, be it at the federal, state, or local level. Network of hundreds of organizations and thousands of advocates we do through our email list. I'll give you more information about that later. Please make sure you are getting Arts North Carolina emails if you aren't already. Our professional lobbying company, Ken Melton and Associates, where we've got Ken, Andy, and Sherry over there talking about the arts all year long. I coordinate with them on a weekly basis, particularly right now when we're in session. And then election engagement, helping with candidate and voter engagement and providing election resources, particularly to nonprofit arts organizations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about local advocacy. Our staff, obviously myself, I'm the executive director. I work to build those relationships with legislators and across the arts sector. I work on advocacy, training, resources, et cetera. I am the only full-time employee at Arts North Carolina. Then we've got two amazing part-time employees, Christine and Andy. Christine is our administrator. She does all the bookkeeping and keeps us up with our lobbying compliance. She deals with all the membership records and services for all of those members, all of our logistics, and as well as our website NIT. So if Christine doesn't know about it, it just simply isn't happening. And then our marketing associate, Andy Freeman, that takes everything that we do and makes it look good. She works on our emails and our social media and getting that out there. She does all the design work for the website, as well as marketing for the license plate and getting the message out about Arts Day, and all of our graphic design and video production, which she's been doing more and more recently. But then we've got amazing partners that we work with statewide. Of course, the North Carolina Arts Council, we spend a lot of time trying to get them some money so that the rest of us can have access to funds. But in addition to that, the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits that does a great job of representing the policy needs of the nonprofit sector. North Carolina Presenters Consortium, who has a membership of not only presenters, but agents and performers as well. A really great organization that is based in North Carolina, but has reach outside across the entire region. North Carolina Theater Conference, both education and professional. Arts Access of North Carolina, our statewide accessibility partner. Triangle Artworks, that is technically a regional organization based in the Triangle, but so much of their material is online. They are really serving the state. So many fantastic resources, particularly for artists, and training and professional development. North Carolina Writers Network, of course. And then down at the bottom is the groups of arts councils we engage with. WNC Arts, the Big 8 arts leaders I meet with regularly from the Urban Arts Councils, as well as Focused East, which is the Eastern Arts Councils, and the Piedmont Regional Arts Councils, which are in the middle of the state. Then our education partners, we come together under the title Arts Education Leadership Coalition. We host their website, artsednc.org. It's sort of convened and moderated by North Carolina Department of Public Instruction with a little help from North Carolina Arts Council's Education Department. But really the core membership are the ones you see below in the box. It is all of the professional organizations for the music teachers and the visual arts teachers and the dance teachers and the choral directors and the theater teachers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that we can kind of come together and discuss issues and policy and work together with one voice. And then are there national organizations and coalitions? Americans for the Arts, which is sort of the national advocacy organization, amongst other things. National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, National Endowment for the Arts, we all know the NEA. South Arts, which is our regional partner, our regional arts organization. Creative States Coalition, which is a coalition of all the Arts North Carolina level, state level advocacy organizations throughout the state. Artists Thrive is a really fantastic partner that we work on engaging individual artists, as well as the Cultural Advocacy Group, which is over 50 national, regional, and state level organizations who have advocacy as part of their mission and work within the cultural and arts space. So what does this all mean? What does this look like? What do we really do? So around nonprofit organizations, Arts North Carolina advocates and lobbies to the North Carolina General Assembly, primarily for funding for the North Carolina Arts Council and their grant program. That is always at the top of our list. And the North Carolina Arts Council then grants that out across all 100 counties of North Carolina. Um, right now, that stands at about 7.3 recurring each year. We also work with Americans for the Arts and all of those other national partners I just mentioned to advocate to Congress for the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as National Endowment for Humanities, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Institute Museum and Library Sciences, etc. Now, of that, about $1 million a year goes to the North Carolina Arts Council that then gets re-granted out across the state of North Carolina. And then there's usually about another $500,000 to $1 million that are granted directly to organizations across the state from the NEA as well. So, so all of that advocacy work goes through at the state and federal level and comes back to grants that come out all across North Carolina. Now, from an education standpoint, it works the exact same way, only we're usually talking about policy and to a certain extent some funding, either going through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and then being implemented through across North Carolina, or at the federal level, the U.S. Department of Education, which then either goes through the North Carolina DPI or directly out across the country. So when we're talking about comprehensive arts education, it's a policy platform that means that it's in three parts. Arts education, which is, treating arts as a subject, learning how to dance, learning how to draw, learning how to act, learning how to sing, etc. Arts exposure, the belief that you really have to have exposure to high quality arts, such as going to a museum, concerts, dance performances, etc. You can't just have instruction, you need to be exposed to it as well. And then arts integration, which is using the arts as a catalyst and a tool to learn in subjects across the entire curriculum. Now, when I have a legislator that doesn't really understand that, I'm like, look, you learned your alphabet to a song that was written by Mozart. So there's no reason that you can't learn how the solar system works by creative movement, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really about integrating the arts into learning because kids learn differently. What does that look like in reality? We do a lot of arts education policy. Back in 2020, we saw the arts high school graduation requirement. This year, we're going to be working on some legislation for visual art and music for all K-5 public school students, trying to make sure that that's accessible to them, as well as an arts proficiency endorsement for high school diplomas. We also, of course, talk about funding for public school teachers and their instruction and nonprofit programs as well. And then A+ Schools of North Carolina, which I think they've got 67 to 70 schools across the state, is a whole school arts integration program that's housed at the North Carolina Arts Council. So that's actually expanded to other states, other countries. I think it's in a total of 3 continents now, counting this one, Africa and Europe. So we're really excited to see that program grow as well. Then, we've got some friends at the North Carolina General Assembly. It's the Joint Caucus on Arts and Arts Education. So those folks that sign up for that are, House and Senate members that come together to learn about the economic, educational, and civic impact of the arts in North Carolina. So this really gives us a chance to have a broader conversation amongst those legislators that care about the arts. Our leadership right now, Becky Carney and Representative Kyle Hall. Becky Carney's out of Mecklenburg. Kyle Hall is from Stokes County. So they are caucus leaders, caucus chairs in the House, and then in the Senate, Senator Vicky Sawyer out of Iredell County and Mike Woodard from Durham County. I think they all have a few extra counties in there as well. So, so really important to know that these guys are strong leaders that really help us to push legislation, policy, funding through the North Carolina General Assembly. Right now, we are currently recruiting members. So you're going to get these slides afterwards. They'll be on our website. Use that link. It's a call to action. Tell your member to join. I don't know how many we have in the House yet. I haven't gotten that list. Currently, we've got 18 out of 50 in the Senate. So that's 36% in the Senate. I will say almost that it is pretty consistent. We always have more Republicans in the Arts Caucus than Democrats, which makes sense because there are more Republicans at the General Assembly than there are Democrats. But a lot of people are surprised by that fact. Our goals for the caucus is talking about the economic impact and value of the arts, certainly educating them about the programs of the North Carolina Arts Council and particularly the grant program so that we can increase that funding, and then talking to them about arts education and our policy initiatives around comprehensive arts education. So what have we been up to? What good have we done with all of this? Well, just in the last few years, this is the last 2 or 3 years, we saw $1 million increase in the grassroots arts program, up from 2.8 to 3.8 million. We were able to secure 15 millions from those ARPA funds that the state had. And in addition to 9.4 in aid to nonprofits from the CARES Act funding. We saw that, I mentioned that arts high school graduation requirement back in 2020. We also worked a lot on all the public safety orders around COVID, working with several folks in the administration, training around arts candidate event forum toolkit, as well as a survey toolkit. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Pushing out arts education resolutions, now covering up to 28%. And the list goes on. I talked a little bit about education, and also all of the federal work we were part of, shuttered venue operator, NEA pandemic relief, and actually just recently we saw the NEA is now funded at $207 million a year after receiving a 15% increase this year. That is the biggest increase that the National Endowment for the Arts has ever seen in its 50+ year history. So really exciting there. You can't really talk about Arts North Carolina without talking about Arts Day. I touched on it a little bit. It is, mark your calendars. It is going to be April 17th and 18th. We are in person and in person only. We're back. We're going to be a whole new venue for us, McKimmon Conference Center and NC State University. For day one for our conference day. Then day two, we'll have our tent, our Arts Day pavilion set up on Halifax Mall, which is right in the center of the government complex. We're going to have Ben Folds. We're going to have Alan Brown of Wolf Brown Consulting talking. Reese Palmer is going to perform and talk to us. Liza Roberts is going to be talking about her new book about visual arts in North Carolina. Jeff Bell from the Arts Council. Lenora Hammonds, who heads up the North Carolina Central University program for teaching artists. So it's going to be a really great multidisciplinary conference day. We're going to talk a little bit about advocacy and our issues as well, because the next day we're going to go over to the General Assembly, meet with those legislators. We're going to have nice shady tent, a good lunch. We're going to have performances, usually younger performers out there as well. So it's just a really fun day. There are full scholarships available for independent artists, students, and educators. Just go to the website, check it out. Just let us know. And we're actually really excited this year because we're pushing out a lot of new accessibility initiatives. You can find out more about that at the Arts Day page as well, and with our Arts Day accessibility page. So I'm going to wrap up the Arts NC section, just kind of asking a few questions about whether or not you're up for the arts. Make sure you're signed up for that Arts NC email list so you can receive the updates and get the calls to action when the time is right. Make sure that you're joining up either as an individual member or as an organization. You know, that rate is based on your budget size. The smallest of organizations are $70. The largest, it goes up to $2,000. So be sure to check that out. Definitely go to thecreativestate.org, get that cool license plate there with our good friend Artie doing his little dance. It is a great way to find your car at Trader Joe's or Walmart or wherever you happen to be. You know, obviously do the work and speak up for the arts, answer those calls to action when we put them out, talk about why the arts matter, and meet with those elected officials and come to Arts Day. It's going to be super exciting this year. Like I said, April 17th and 18th, yes, we will be talking to the government on the day that your taxes are due. So there's going to be a little bit of fun irony there, but definitely come and check us out. And so now we're going to take a little break. I'm going to get a drink of water and I'm going to ask you, actually, let me, I'm not sure that I have moved to the next question. So let's go here. Screen sharing has stopped. Okay. Okay, now, while I get a drink of water, pardon my technology. All right, there you go. Go ahead and go to www.mnt.com or just use that the QR code there and enter. It's the same number, 4119-3908. And we should be on to the next question. I will give you guys just a few seconds to do that. So how have you engaged with local elected officials? You can click as many as you've done: conversation at event, sent a letter or an email, invited an official to an arts event, had a meeting with them in some regard, spoken publicly, conducted a candidate survey, held our event. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can go to the other one and see how our results are coming in. Look at that. We got a lot of folks have had a conversation. Let's see, I can make sure I can share the screen here. There we go. So we can see that there's certainly a, so on the front end of that advocacy scale, we've got some more people. You guys are really engaged. We've got a lot of folks going. So it's good because I'm going to move through this next little bit pretty fast because I want to be very aware of time and I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions and discussion. But this is really great information, helps me get a sense. Looks like you guys are already really engaged with your local officials. So let's talk a little bit more. All right, let's do stop share here and go back to Nate's fun and crazy slideshow. All right. So first thing I want to say, and one of the main reasons I did the history, like we came out of local arts councils. I totally stole it from my friends at Be an Arts Hero. Local arts council are our heroes statewide, and North Carolina has one of the best and most expansive local arts council networks in the country, and that has really helps North Carolina thrive in so many ways. Arts council are very often an advocacy leader in the community, and that's so huge for us and something we want to try and work with local arts councils on to help them and find out what they need to be successful in their local communities. Their mission is often focused on an entire arts community and not just their own programming. So that can be really helpful, particularly as an advocacy leader. They've got partnerships with arts organizations, artists, and art supporters. They're usually the grassroots arts program grant partner that helps to manage that in their own county. So that actually makes them very knowledgeable, helpful for us at Arts North Carolina because they understand that program as well as their entire arts community. And like I was saying, there are a lot of new faces within this local arts council leadership. And so I want to make sure that we're really connecting that group together. Now, if you are an arts council leader or you are somebody that wants to be an advocacy leader in your county, I encourage you to hit that link. Like I said, we'll get the PDF posted and emailed out to you. You hit that link to sign up for Arts Day, be an Arts Day captain. I do a webinar and spell it all out. There's some really simple 5-minute training videos on our website. So March 7th, we're going to have that webinar. You can always watch a video of the webinar. So we try and provide as much training and resources, but we also let county captains manage their counties and those relationships as needed. Scheduling, they schedule meetings with legislators, coordinate with advocates from their county to work out schedules and logistics, resources, etc. Oftentimes those county captains lead those meetings, and I know we got a lot of county captains on the call today. And I think that one of the bonuses about being a county captain is that this is a great way to recruit folks that might be interested in advocacy in your community. And then you've got people that you can rely on in your own community when you're doing advocacy at the county or city level. In terms of methodology at the local level, I encourage everybody, and it looks like we got people that are doing this already, get involved with networking. The Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, these are great organizations. Receptions and lunches and dinners, these are great networking opportunities to connect with lots of folks, business leaders, and not just elected officials. But if there's retreats or annual meetings or inner city visits, I encourage folks to really check that out. I had some of the best local advocacy conversations of my career when I was on those longer extended trips. You get out, get away, you're riding a bus together or a plane or in a meeting or at a bar. It gives you a chance to really get to know elected official. Political events are a great way. You could go to events that are held for elected officials or go to candidate forums, events, debates, etc. You could go to candidate fundraisers, but don't use nonprofit money around candidate. You can check out our election website. There's lots of do's and don'ts about what you can and can't do if you work for a nonprofit. You want to be really careful with your personal money. You also, if you're going to a candidate fundraiser, you got to be cautious because the person you're going to may lose, or maybe you want to go to both sides of the competition just to spread it around. But so just be cautious when you start getting into getting engaged in candidate fundraising. But you can still go. You can still go, and you can still talk about your job and what you do. And invite elected officials and as well as not only elected but even appointed, like city managers, county managers, to come to arts event. I know people get really frustrated when I say that, and time again they say, I invited so and so many times and they never came. Well, if they come, great, they get to see what you do. But if they don't come, they're getting an email from you every time you're doing something, and so they become aware of what you do. So maybe they're not coming, but either way, you're making headway. So you're getting in front of somebody. So it's a win-win. Grassroots advocacy, again, sign up for the email list. I will do everything I can to help get those calls to action. I got a great email program called Voter Voice. So you kind of, when you sign up, you put your address in there, and then it just automatically knows every time who your folks are, and you can just update and personalize the message that I've created, or just send the message that I've created or that Americans for the Arts has created, and send it right away. It takes like a minute or 2 minutes, depending on how much you want to personalize. You can also send personal emails, invitations to events like we talked about, gratitude for funding or any policy that but just really, using email to build a relationship and have a conversation, or write a letter. It can be nice to have that physical piece. Excuse me. Again, gratitude around funding or policy or support can be a great, or just updating them on who you are and what you do. Now, I'm not going to go too much into conversations at the local level, because I have got a ton of resources on our website about how to have conversations with elected officials. But know that anything is good. In person is great, but video chat, telephone, these are also great. Just being prepared, being patient, making it human, but adding in facts to kind of put it into context, always being grateful before, during, and after the meeting. These are some things that we just always want to keep in mind when we're having these scheduled conversations and meetings. Again, we've got a lot of training resources, short videos about how to schedule them, how to have them, how to lead them, etc. We've got our advocacy hub, which has links to all sorts of information depending on who or what you're talking to, and then other resources to some of our national partners. You can go to that link. There's lots of information out there as you're trying to add that information to whatever that human story is. So I can answer questions about that if we want at the end. I do want to encourage everybody to think about public speaking and what that is, right? Writing an op-ed. Writing an op-ed is a really great way to sit down and put your thoughts out on paper. It's a good way to prep for a meeting, but and then submit it to the paper. If it doesn't get printed, who cares, right? Like, we live in a world where all of us can plop down whatever we want to say on social media or a blog, or send it out to your email list. You've got an opinion, you've got a platform, throw it out there. So even if you're not getting your op-ed printed, go ahead and put it, spread it around as best you can. Speaking at all kinds of public events, that can be chambers of commerce, rotaries, exactly all those folks that we talked about networking. Ask about getting on the stage and having those conversations. Speaking with other nonprofits who align with your mission. Any kind of social groups, clubs, sororities and fraternities, affinity groups. There's people out there that might be interested, that are looking for programming, and would benefit from hearing what you have to say. And then, of course, speaking at city council meetings or county commission meetings. Make it easy for them well in advance. You want to try and make it easy. You want to have that information plus inspiration that we've talked about. Again, lots of resources in that. And add performances if you want. Show and tell works. And so on that hint, or on that tip, if you want to engage with public meetings, a really great way to do that is proclamations. October is Arts and Humanities Month. It can be a really great time to get your mayor or city council or county commission to proclaim October as Arts and Humanities Month in your county or in your city. There's a blog there at Americans for the Arts that talks a little bit about how to do it. Again, make it well in advance. You can give a presentation at the meeting, do a performance, and be sure that you're grateful the entire time. You see, there's themes that are running through all of our work: gratitude, be prepared, information plus inspiration. You can also reach out to your local school board. Arts Are Education Proclamations is a national movement. North Carolina is using it better than everybody else, which I'm very proud about, partially because we created a toolkit in partnership with North Carolina Music Educators Association. But again, there's Arts and Education Week that comes in September. There's Arts in Our School Month in March. These are great times to sort of center your proclamations, but you can do it at any time, well in advance. And the show and tell, those kids performing, you can see them there at the school board meeting. It just really highlights what you're talking about. This is also a really great project for arts coordinators in local school districts and local arts councils to sort of work together with the superintendent to get this in front of the school board. Is a great way to raise awareness around the arts, and really great way to get this in front of local officials prior to budget season. And lastly, candidates surveys and events. Candidate surveys are a really great way to educate candidates, right? And we've got a toolkit that explains all of the details on that. Thank you to Katie Cornell up in Asheville for helping me put that together. So that toolkit is all about, how to create the surveys, how to distribute the surveys, how to promote the surveys, what works, what doesn't. Those surveys are a great opportunity. Those candidates will learn a lot about the arts, as well as you will learn about the candidates from their answers. And then getting that out there and available. Meet and greets, which are great for either candidates or just elected officials, right? Just, have your entire city council, and not an election year, come to an event, or your city and county's official. Give a presentation, maybe give a performance. We got a toolkit. I want to thank Rhonda Bellamy for helping me put that together, as well as Charles Faniff. Just these events can have really had a lot of great impact in terms of getting folks together. And if you meet and greets are sort of the low-hanging fruit, but you can also do forums and debates. We've seen some really successful. We see pictures there from Asheville Area Arts Council, which is now Arts AVL, and that picture down at the bottom is from Rhonda Bellamy heading up her county commission arts candidate forum, and those other pictures are actually from a meet and greet event that they did for Raleigh City Council and Mayor back in 2019. So these events have a really good impact. We are the nonprofit arts sector. We know how to do wine and cheese and put people in a room. So I know that's a lot of yammering. I'm more than happy to open it up for questions about Arts North Carolina, what we do, local advocacy, all the things. I'm probably good. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left in our time. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
And you can type those into the chat, or you can do the little raise hand feature.
Or if it's going to get really quiet and you guys are going to make me feel awkward, then I'm going to start calling on you and make you unmute. So, and you can unmute and just ask your question as well. You guys know everything there is to know about Arts North Carolina. All right. Hey, so either raise your hand or raise your hand on your icon if you are currently signed up to be a captain, a county captain for Arts Day this year. I see a few hands going up. Awesome. And now raise your hand if you are, or if you're going to sign up as a county captain after hearing this fantastic presentation. Excellent. Eddie's like, yeah, I'm always your county captain up in Stokes. Excellent, guys. Well, I will say, so I've got some advocacy 101 basics. I'm gonna that are on this slide deck at the end. So be sure to check out some of that if you want. Check out the resources. I am really excited this year for the legislative session. We are asking for a $3.5 million increase into our North Carolina Arts Council grant. So that's going to get us up to $1 per capita in grant funding. Gotten some good feedback about that request so far. There's also a request that we're working on outside Arts Day about, some A+ schools funding. And then we've got 2 pieces of arts education legislation. And I talked a little bit about that. One is for the arts proficiency endorsement for a high school diploma. And the other is basically a directive from the General Assembly to public school districts to provide both music and visual art to K-5 students. So we're really looking forward to that. So let me ask this, is there, because I've got a lot of Arts Council folks on the room and a few, so does everybody feel connected? Does anybody feel like they could be more connected? Like, I mean, I know I'm seeing some faces that are like some people that are amazing resources. Are you guys feel like you're connecting with the other arts councils in your district or area? How are we feeling? Let's see, Meredith, I need to get my chat pulled up so I can see.
So far it's just thank yous and everything's great.
Get a list of folks on this call. I don't generally send out email lists for everybody on the call. However, what I do is I am communicating out now to everybody that's an Arts Council director. So I want to try and see if we can energize that group to start having conversations and using that as an active email list, and be able to facilitate conversations or meetings, and whether or not that breaks down regionally or by size. I just think that one of the boons from the pandemic was that we started having these conversations amongst diverse geographies, as well as diverse organizations and diverse communities on Zoom, and learning a lot from each other and what everybody's doing. I've learned so much from what other states are doing. I think there's a few other states that have learned from what we are doing. I've learned so much from some of the Arts Council leaders on this call. So is there an interest for that? Was that a yes? Okay.
We've got some hands raising too.
Excellent.
I have a question, if I
could.
A
voice. Yes, Jessica, fire away.
So before, I've been in this position for about 1.5 years now, and my predecessor talked about focused East meetings. So I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard about that since I've been in the position. So I don't know if that's comes down from you or if there's someone I should reach out to, but I thought that would be a helpful way to connect with, our region or our third of the state.
I'll respond quickly, and Rhonda may want to respond as well. I believe that is normally convened by the North Carolina Arts Council, but there's no reason they cannot convene separately or initiate convening with the North Carolina Arts Council. Would that be your take on it, Rhonda?
I would agree. Focus East has been an initiative of the North Carolina Arts Council, and we've not met in some time, mainly because they had a number of changes and transitions at the Arts Council.
Right. And, I will say that if Focus East, so the Piedmont, I think, has met the least, and then followed by Focus East. But WNC Arts, actually, those guys meet, is it once a month now, Katie? And the Arts Council come, and I come, and then they meet. And then they, squarely kick me and the Arts Council sometimes off the call, and they talk about us behind our back or talk about things that have nothing to do. I don't know what. Did you want to say anything about that, Katie?
I'll just say WNC Arts are the Western Arts Agencies of North Carolina, formed in the late 80s as a peer-to-peer support group for Arts Council directors in the western part of the state. It's an official nonprofit. And so it's a little bit different than Focus East. It's not an initiative of the North Carolina Arts Council, but they definitely support it and come to our meetings, as Nate said. And we met quarterly up until the pandemic, and then we started meeting bi-weekly, and in the last year have started meeting monthly. But yeah, that group heavily depended on each other during the pandemic.
Kathy, you got a question? You got your hand up?
Nope, sorry, forgot to.
Oh no, it's okay. All good, all good. Anyone else? Any questions from so if you are, I do hope that that all the new Arts Council leaders do consider being a county captain. And if you want to know, if you really want to know what that's all about, let me know. Or if you want to sign up as a county captain and then and then you come to the thing on March 7th and you're like, Nate, I can't do this. We can always pull your name off. But the March 7th webinar is going to be for county captains. It's really, folks have found it very helpful because we walk through the entire process, map out the legislature, where to park, what to tell people, etc. And actually that webinar is great because even folks that have been a county captain for 10 years or more are coming to those webinars just to get their refresher. We also talk about the agenda for each year at that county captain webinar, so it's sort of a great first way to learn about the agenda.
Nate, I just want to say that I was happy to see that the North Carolina Arts Council's grant applications for the Grassroots Arts Program grant, question number 14 says, describe how your organization advocates for public funding for the arts. So
yes. I'm very happy. So one of the things that I advocated for, so let's see, Wilder. So thank you very much, Rhonda. By the way, Rhonda is my board chair. So so if you liked what you heard, make sure you tell Rhonda because she's my boss. Let's see. Leanne advised that the next Focus East meeting would be this summer after grant panels, which makes a lot of sense because that'll be they'll have a they get very busy over there around grant time. So let's see. Anybody else? I'm just checking the comments. Oh, Kathy says, yeah, there are a few arts councils that are members of North Carolina's Presenters Consortium. If you have presenting, I encourage you to check those guys out. They are doing Arts Market every year now, so which is great. If you're presenting live performances is huge. So I encourage everybody to check out NCPC's ncpresenters.org for that. Greg, you've got a question.
Yeah, so I get the feeling that a lot of the people that are on this call are with arts councils and stuff like that, and I'm not. I'm a curator at a small university in Rocky Mount, and I don't know what I don't know. Right. I do know that I'm coming out to Arts Day 23 this year for both days to learn and be exposed to this kind of stuff, how to advocate and different stuff. So if anybody has any kind of advice to help me as I kind of learn and wade my way through, I would love an email or anything along those lines to help me maybe not just advocate, but promote different things. I would love any information you can give me, how to raise money, any of that stuff, because I kind of have to do it all on my own. I'm making it up as I go. I've met a few of you. Jessica, I've met before. Nate, I've known for 100 years now, and different stuff. But I guess if I'm going to take the opportunity while I'm talking, in November, we're going to be doing the first ever state of North Carolina and largest global ever Bob Ross exhibit. We're going to have 100 of his original artworks that people saw painted on TV. So if you want any information, call me about that. But I'll tell you about that if I see you at Arts Day. And now I'm done.
No, that Greg, that's perfect. Yes, Greg actually has suffered working with me years ago in a former life. Greg, I would say that first step is go to the Arts Day page and look up your county captain list and see who your county captain is. If you don't have one, sign up to be county captain. And because really if there isn't a county captain, there's a good chance that there might not be a lot of people coming from your county, so you might be the only one, so you're going to have to be your own county captain. So so to go ahead and sign up as a county captain, then that way if someone else from your community wants to come to Arts Day, then you can work together. And then you sign up as a county captain, and then you can come to the webinar and help out with the events. It is it's fun, I gotta say, right? Like I mean, it's people think I've been doing this my whole life. I don't have a degree in political science. I didn't even vote until I was 30, which is embarrassing to say, but I only tell people that to make the point that like I fell in love with the work because I went to my first Arts Day, and all of a sudden it was like a combination of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and West Wing, and I was having the time of my life just talking about what I do to people who can really make a difference. And that got me on Karen Wells' radar, which was my predecessor, and the rest is history. So, but yeah, definitely, it's fun. It is fun. Let's see, am I missing any? Another call. Okay, great point.
And I would add also that our website is, we do our best to try to put an enormous amount of information up there. So if you're on your coffee break or something, take a look at what's going on. And this webinar is going to be posted on our webinar archives page. And all of the webinars that we've done for the last few years are just still remain there. And so you can find out a lot of really good information there, and also on the other pages of our website. So take a look.
And it is a lot of information, but it's also a lot of information that's very well organized and put into little bite-sized chunks, so you don't have to get flooded by the information, right? Like you can learn it 5 minutes at a time. We try to set it up so it's not overwhelming. All right, great. Well, it looks like we've come to the full hour. So guys, thank you so much for coming out today for the webinar. It's been good to see you. I will work on maybe continuing to make some connections with this group and other groups. And I think that, use each other, lean on each other. This is, like I said, the strongest network of arts organizations in the country. So not just arts councils, but all the way across the board. So please continue to reach out and help each other. So thank you all so much. And I will see you at Arts Day, if not before.